Much better now. Oh, hot. You might be wondering why I brought a carrot and a knife with me, and it's just because if I do another video, I'm gonna teach you how to make a super healthy, immune boosting drink from just a carrot. Carrots are good. When it comes to movies, I kind of hate it when they over-explain things to you. Conversely, I always have this kind of childish fixation with showing the means of production. Glimpse. There's a Pilates mat that I put on some things that I use. I don't know, we're getting to that point where it finally sinks in how long this could go on for, and then wondering, oh. I've been known to peruse the YouTube from time to time, and there are these type of people that are called YouTubers. Like, it's basically, it's not all high culture here with me. I'll sometimes watch some pretty banal shit. And sometimes I'll watch a fucking makeup tutorial. I don't know if I watch a makeup tutorial. But one thing that a lot of these young kids talk about a lot is the fucking law of attraction. I apologize if you're like a big believer in this. But I find it funny how the human mind kind of drifts towards this type of magical thinking. And anyway, so I was speaking, this law of attraction stuff. I mean, it's super annoying. But yeah, I'm gonna visualize this and this will come in. And the thing that we just cannot ignore about this is that while this could be a useful mindset tool to a certain extent, it's never gonna substitute hard work and perseverance. And nothing is just gonna come out of nothing just randomly if you're just sitting alone in a room. But anyway, the point that I wanted to make with this is that last chapter, I was supposed to speak about artificial intelligence because I had this kind of crazy idea of what the perfect system of governance would be. And I'm super qualified to present this system to the world. I'm just trying to speak about coincidences and trying to undermine my shitting on the law of attraction thing to then thinking how it's funny how these coincidences happen. Earlier, when I was reading Artaud, I had made a joke about I'm an expert in artificial intelligence because I'd been listening to this podcast for some time. It's this podcast led by my favorite podcaster, artificial intelligence badass Lex Fridman. I really love this guy. It takes a while to grow on you because he has this very kind of paused, almost robotic way of speaking, but then it really grows with you. And he's really, I mean, he's like into MMA and stuff. He's been on the Joe Rogan podcast and they talk about if Joe Rogan could strangle him with his tie because he always dresses the same way in this black suit and tie. He uploads these videos of him playing music, which I mean, I think it's really cool. It's not the kind of music that I would do. I mean, I put some music videos up too, and now I guess I have this it's not a podcast. This is just me trying to come to terms with potential new ways of interacting with the world due to the current circumstances. But anyway, bear with me and you'll see why I think the world will surprise us with these kind of beautiful coincidences sometimes, and then of course throw like a crazy pandemic at us. I've been listening to this podcast, and then I went to this book, and the thing that popped out to me was Richard Dawkins. And like 2 days later, artificial intelligence podcast, who's the guest? Richard Dawkins, Selfish Gene, meme. So that just told me I'm kind of on the right path. I'm just gonna go with it. I think everything's gonna kind of weirdly tie in of what I've been saying so far. I'm happy to not like over-explain and spell out everything that's going on in my head of why I think this is relevant, and take this just as kind of like an exercise, maybe joke around a bit. So I just figured I'd read the last couple of paragraphs from the excerpt that's contained in the book from The Selfish Gene, where Dawkins speaks about meme, because it ends on a very nice note. I mean, it's a very kind of cliched thing, but I think it's important to remember this just because it speaks a lot to our capacity to break away from the things that are structurally, genetically embedded in us. I think that a new kind of replicator has recently emerged on this very planet. It is staring us in the face. It is still in its infancy, still drifting clumsily about in its primeval soup. But already it is achieving evolutionary change at a rate which leaves the old gene panting far behind. The new soup is the soup of human culture. We need a name for the new replicator, a noun which conveys the idea of a unit of cultural transmission, or a unit of imitation. But I want a monosyllable that sounds a bit like gene. I hope my classist friends will forgive me if I abbreviate meme to meme. If it is any consolation, it could alternatively be thought of as being related to memory, or to the French word meme. It should be pronounced to rhyme with cream. Meme. Examples of memes are tunes, ideas, catchphrases, clothes, fashions, ways of making pots or building arches. Just as genes propagate themselves in the gene pool by leaping from body to body via sperms or eggs, so memes propagate themselves in the meme pool by leaping from brain to brain via a process which, in the broad sense, can be called imitation. If a scientist hears or reads about a good idea, he passes it on to his colleagues and students. He mentions it in his articles and his lectures. If the idea catches on, it can be said to propagate itself, spreading from brain to brain. As my colleague N.K. Humphrey neatly summed up in an earlier draft of this chapter, memes should be regarded as living structures, not just metaphorically, but technically. When you plant a fertile meme in my mind, you literally parasitize my brain, turning it into a vehicle for a meme's propagation in just the way that a virus may parasitize the genetic mechanism of a host cell. And this isn't just a way of talking. The meme for, say, belief in life after death is actually realized physically millions of times over as a structure in the nervous systems of individual men the world over. I conjecture that co-adapted meme complexes evolve in the same kind of way as co-adapted gene complexes. Selection favors memes which exploit their cultural environment to their own advantage. This cultural environment consists of other memes which are also being selected. The meme pool therefore comes to have the attributes of an evolutionarily stable set, which new memes find it hard to invade. I have been a bit negative about memes, but they have their cheerful side as well. When we die, there are two things we can leave behind us: genes and memes. We were built as gene machines, created to pass on our genes. But that aspect of us will be forgotten in 3 generations. Your child, even your grandchild, may bear a resemblance to you, perhaps in facial features, in a talent for music, in the color of her hair. But as each generation passes, the contribution of your genes is halved. It does not take long to reach negligible proportions. Our genes may be immortal, but the collection of genes, which is any one of us, is bound to crumble away. Elizabeth II is a direct descendant of William the Conqueror, yet it is quite probable that she bears not a single one of the old king's genes. We should not seek immortality in reproduction. But if you contribute to the world's culture, if you have a good idea, compose a tune, invent a spark plug, write a poem, it may live on intact, long after your genes have dissolved in the common pool. Socrates may or may not have a gene or two alive in the world today. As G.C. Williams has remarked, who cares? The meme complexes of Socrates, Leonardo, Copernicus, and Marconi are still going strong. I mean, we use these human terms, want to survive. They don't want anything. It's just the way it is. It's just like this kind of élan vital, like this inertia of living and remaining. But then the idea of meme adds this other layer on it. And the thing that's so powerful about it is that we can break away from the problematic aspects of our own past when we say like, yeah, like there's this dark, primal, brutal side of humans. We shouldn't deny this. Like all these discussions about equality that some people, some parties will try to justify by saying, yes, but it's in human nature. Da, da, da. The idea of meme seems, at least in theory, powerful enough for us to break away from this and not to give cheap excuses, I guess, for shitty behavior. Yeah, so The Mind's Eye, highly recommended. I give it an 8 out of 10. Yeah, whatever. But there are a bunch of things like from science fiction writers to scientists to said Alan Turing is in there. I already saw like Schrodinger's cat drawn somewhere in there. Can't go wrong with that. Dead and alive at the same time. There it is. It's kind of the way our brain feels right now. Next chapter, I don't think I'll deal with quantum mechanics, at least not yet. I'm going to go back to something a bit. I want to say that this isn't poetic, as Lex Fridman would say. I had a couple of books stacked up here. This is a great book. He used to be one of my favorite writers when I was a late teen, Bertrand Russell. I guess another Brit. They do have a way with words. Another very pretentious book I have here, Gilles Deleuze, Félix Guattari, 1,000 Plateaus. Never read the whole thing, of course. Who the hell has? There are some great ideas, but I don't know. Deleuze, it's not really even Deleuze. It's more the whole Deleuze cult in universities, which kind of gets on my nerves. I feel that he very unfairly criticized Wittgenstein. He kind of hated Wittgenstein, and maybe at some point I'll read a little Wittgenstein. I mean, Wittgenstein also genius. To once again quote Lex Fridman, I think he has some very poetic passages in his Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus. I mean, I understand about half of it, I would say, but nevertheless, you can always. I mean, it's not what Deleuze does anyway. Just like ransacks all philosophy to kind of create his own creative philosophy or whatnot. But anyway, there's some cool ideas in in here for sure. So this book I've been meaning to get back to. I bought it at Indigo Books I guess a long time ago. We'd always like to fantasize that he was a relative of ours for some reason. I think my grandmother, he's a genius, and I mean, he's a brilliant man, and we always had this idea that he's probably like a relative. Probably not. The same thing with Glenn Gould. Probably a good thing because he was a bit, cray. Yeah, Sapiens. I also started this book. Haven't finished it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it being more mainstream, but it's more of this like bestseller type format book in many ways. But that's not a fair assessment because I haven't gotten through the whole thing. I think I got. Yeah, I'll probably tackle that later. But yeah, I feel that it's nice to have books around. And who the fuck cares if you haven't read all of them? I mean, this is another thing. Like people with this attitude that just want to question people like, oh, have you read any of those books behind you? And I mean, of course, yeah, if it's like some random, boring, I don't know, somebody who has books just about banks or what, I mean, when it's better to have books around you than like a bunch of fucking guns. Fill everything with bookshelves and just put books in. It's one of the greatest things. So yes, so next chapter, I think I'll go for something more in the realm of literature. But yeah. I think we're going to be isolated for quite a while longer, which see what that does to our brains and to memes. 30 minutes. Shouldn't be too painful to edit down to a nice comfy 10 minutes. I apologize for the other video, which was like 17 minutes. I'm sure hardly anybody watched till the end, but I mean, that's just the way it goes. In theory, we have some time, so, or do we? Latest Fashion by L'Aubainerie. Thank you.